Wealth is often what's unseen. So it's not always what you can see. Wealth exists in what comes in and what goes out. So if they're spending all of their money on these things, they're not actually wealthy. They could be broke and fancy, but they're still broke. 1% of effort back into the family can yield a 90% return on your investment. Here's why. You have high starting energy, and normally as projects get to about the 50-yard line, you're like, I'm good, I want to start something else. So
get ready for the next iteration of you on your path to becoming wealthy. On this show, you'll get the insider's view on wealth creation, the class none of us got taught in school, with my co-host, daughter, and beginning investor, Sofia Bosch. And now, let's get started. Welcome to Becoming Wealthy. I'm your host, Michelle Bosch. I have my co-host,
Sofia Bosch.
And today I have an amazing woman with us. She is actually a personal friend as well as a mentor. I got to know her through a life coaching program called Lifebook. And she now is a marriage-centric business coach. She coaches clients on business, making sure that they are able to grow their business. But alongside, if that entrepreneur is married, that the marriage is also thriving and also growing along the business. So today we have here as our special guest, Kelly Clements. Kelly, how are you? Welcome to the show.
thank you so much. It's so wonderful to be here.
I am so excited to have this conversation because, Sofia is growing up in a household with two type A entrepreneurial parents. And, there's so many couples back in, a couple decades ago when Jack and I started working together. We were an anomaly. And now you start to see much more of that. But also, there's a lot of still entrepreneurs where there's traditional role separation happening, in their families, and it's a difficult journey. And so I'm very happy that you're here with us to, talk about it. I know Sofia had, a few questions that I was telling her that you are a Kolbe expert, and yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. So I took the kids Kolbe test rather than the adults, I think, a while back. And I'm pretty sure this hasn't changed, but I'm a 4.556.
And Kelly, perhaps you want to tell, our audience or, whoever's listening, what is the Kolbe, and do you use that in your practice right now, in your consulting, coaching entrepreneurs and their spouses?
Sure. So Kolbe is a predictive index it's not predictive. Kolbe is an index that measures people's striving instincts. So it measures how we problem solve or project plan. And I love using this with couples. And Sofia, I'm going to get to your results in a second, because basically what it does is it looks under the hood at how we get our best results. And so if couples are continually struggling with household management, or how we plan vacations, or how we budget or spend or save money, a lot of that can be identified through Kolbe. So Sofia, with your results, all your numbers are between 4 and 6, yes?
Yeah.
Yep. So what you are is a mediator, which means you're a chameleon. You can respond to whoever you're working with because you're right in a middle zone. And Kathy Kolbe, who's the creator of the Kolbe Index, said if you ever find a mediator, hire them. Like they're the grout that can fill in all the cracks and crevices. And so it's good that you know this result so young, because you're going to be able to you're going to start to get a flavor for who you work best with and where your strengths or talents are going to be most useful. So if you're working with a lot of quick starts, like probably with your parents, I'm assuming, Michelle, you guys both had quick starts? Yep. So you probably can plug in with them very, very easily and go with the flow and last minute and, very deadline driven. But you might find yourself when you're at school and working with groups of friends that like to have a specific plan, or they like to do lots of research, you can plug in with them as well.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's something that I realize that Kolbe, depending on you being in transition phases, in your life, that it can actually change. Because I actually originally was a fact finder. And that's 2011 when I originally first took that test. And I just did it last year again. And now I'm this high quick start. I'm like, but I think it's like, as you evolve, and also, the necessities of what we're doing in business have shifted that so drastically. I was like, wow, that is, I always thought you're born this way, you're wired this way, own it, and it's going to stay static forever. But it just shows you, it just goes to show you that you evolve, your identity evolve, and there's different faces, to that identity.
Most of the time it does stay the same. And actually, even if you do retake it, Kolbe says to stay with your initial result, because a lot of times there's not biases when you first take it. However, there's an asterisk there. They found that when people are leaving the military, or maybe they're a school teacher or something where it's very structured, because when you think about our school system, it's very fact finder follow through centric. If you think about traditional schooling, it's here's all the information, memorize it, and then you're going to give it back to us. So learn the facts, and the school day is on rinse repeat all day long. And so high fact finders and high follow throughs generally do really well in the school system, because it supports their natural ability. People who don't know how to think about their uniqueness, if they're high quick starts, might go through the school system and feel like something's wrong with them. My son is very high quick start, very high implementer, and that's the cohort that normally gets labeled ADHD and medicated. So he had perception very early on that he was like the fish in the forest. He was, don't judge yourself based on this environment that you're in, because you're never going to know how good you are until you're out of this traditional environment.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
What do each number mean? Like, what are the 4 categories? Because I know my 6 is like a little bit like artistic type, like
is that your last number?
Creative. Yeah, that's my last.
It's like hands-on, whether you're hands-on, which you are.
Yeah, I know that my first number
is a fact finder. How much information do you need before you take action? The second one is, how much does that information need to be organized in order for you to take action? And the third one would be just like somebody that doesn't need any of the two, kind of like jumps right into, getting things done. And while they're doing it, they learn the facts and they organize the facts. Kind of like, is that a good,
so in a nutshell? One with the 4, that, like your mom said, that's the instinct to gather information. With the 4, you're in the middle of the road, which means you don't want just the bottom line, and you also don't want like all the citations and follow-up details. Like, give me the bottom line and some bullet points, and I'm good. Which means if people are talking, you can extract their wisdom pretty quickly. And once you know what they're talking about, you're like, all right, move on. So bottom line and bullet points is your first. Your second number is actually, like your mom said, how is the information organized? But mostly also, I want you to think about like a 10-step process. Say you're assembling a bookshelf in your room, and it comes with the instructions. With that middle number, you can look at a 10-step instruction sheet and be like, I can probably get this done in 6 steps. Like you might not always follow the same pattern or structure. And the other thing that's really important is this middle number measures finishing energy. So with a middle of the road finishing energy, you're probably not going to finish all of the projects that you start. And when I say that, it's counterintuitive, because you're taught to finish everything that you start. You have high starting energy, and normally as projects get to about the 50-yard line, you're like, I'm good, I want to start something else. So just be mindful of what projects you want to finish and what projects need to be finished, and which ones were maybe like, that was a fun art project that I liked in the beginning, but I'm ready for something else now. Lots of variety, lots of multitasking.
Yes. Which can make it hard, for her right now as she's evaluating even like what to major in, because she finds herself so good at so many different things, and it's reflective in this index. Yeah. Now,
hold on. I want to go back to to the 50%. I have a history assignment due tomorrow that I was 50% done with it 2 weeks ago, and I'm still 50% done with it right now.
That's a perfect illustration.
Yeah. So it needs to get done, but it'll happen.
Yeah. So then
what you're going to do now is you're going to lean on your quick start energy, which is your third number. And that's when the 11th hour, you're like, all right, I got it. And you'll drive it home. Think of all of those.
Yeah, that sounds about right. That sounds about
yes. Now for married couples, that are also entrepreneurial. Like I know, Kelly, that you have been the entrepreneur with a supporting spouse, and in one relationship, and in another relationship, you have been, the supporting spouse to the entrepreneur. In a situation where both are, let's talk about a situation like the ones that you've had, where one is the entrepreneur and the other one is the supporting spouse. Like, what advice would you have, in making sure that the business is thriving, but also marriage is thriving, and that all categories of a person's life, we talked about in Lifebook there being 12 categories in a person's life, that everything is thriving. Like what advice would you have?
So I'm going to keep this actually centric to being a driven female, because that's its own unique bird. And Michelle, to your point earlier of like, you were the anomaly, and now it's so common that couples work together or women have their own businesses. And I think driven women have the most opportunity and the biggest challenges when it comes to their personal relationship. And the reason it's an opportunity is we're able to maintain a really high degree of autonomy and being in relationship because we want to. We're never going to be in a position where we feel like we can't leave, or we feel like we're stuck because we don't have our own resources, whether it's financial or our own wherewithal to pull on a business knowledge to create our own resources. And I believe even if a woman hasn't exposed to it yet, she can find it within herself. When we come into relationship and we already have this dynamic of being financially independent or ambitious, it takes the exact right man to be able to stand next to you and not be threatened by it, and supportive, and holding his own, having his own ambitions, having his own drive where he doesn't need to steamroll. And so this is where I talk about having a relationship that's like a three-legged race. There's a shared degree of interdependence, but both people are able to function independently as well, so that neither.
I like this three-legged, analogy. Yeah. That completely makes sense. I mean, Sofia, you're growing up right now in a family where you're seeing, both people, charging forward, and there's a lot of conversations about business even that spill over, sometimes into family time. And Sofia is the one that keeps us in check. Hey guys, this is amazing that you guys are discussing this, and I'm surprised, that you haven't, either fired this person because you've been talking about this for months, and then that's when we realized, this is we've gone too far. We've taken the business, too far into our personal private life.
I find it interesting. I personally, I attribute a lot of what I understand about business and the whole entrepreneur journey to the little conversations that I do here. Like our rooms in the house, I'm very close to them. So if they're having a discussion or something in their room, and it's not that they raise their voices, but it's just they're talking assertively, and that comes with a little bit of loudness. I can hear it. So
yeah. So what advice would you have for couples, other than your actual kid being the police person, letting you know, hey guys, we're at dinner. Let's switch topics. I want to tell you about my day.
Yeah.
And how to navigate and set a little bit of boundaries and structure.
Sure. I think it requires both people to have a high interest in being multidimensional, especially if couples are working together, having a high commitment to being multidimensional. I always encourage that this comes through play. The reason I like play is, as entrepreneurs and high drivers, we're never going to be the ones that want to go home and just binge watch TV for 10 hours at night to unwind, or on a vacation. We're not always the ones who are super excited to sit by the pool for 7 days. So having a high degree of play and activity is a really good way to bring some of that driving, charging energy into the relationship to keep our brains working together. But also play releases the love hormone, oxytocin, which bonds couples together. It gives people, it gets where we get to see our one another in the best light. And so having hobbies, shared pursuits, individual pursuits that you can talk about outside of, something besides business, it gives you some other exposure to life besides just always talking about business. So being super conscious about other hobbies will keep you both multidimensional, and it keeps the love relationship strong.
Yeah, absolutely. I can relate to that for sure. And us having, like Jack right now, he's all into hiking. He's actually doing a hike all across, Spain. And I love, going to my vinyasa class and yoga and so on. And sometimes on the days in which we do those things after our work day, we don't spill over the business topics over dinner, because we've had a chance to kind of unwind doing those two things and then come back to the family unit in a completely different headspace. Yeah. Now, I find, in our coaching, company, and even in, clients, that want to invest with us in our apartment syndications and so on, sometimes the situation where, okay, I need, one of the spouses is super entrepreneurial and gung-ho and in a quick start, and the other one is a little bit probably more of the fact finder and so on and so forth. How should couples navigate that? One would be, okay, self-awareness. I arrived to the decision differently. I arrived one through data gathering and the other one by just jumping in. But any other ideas that you would have, for a couple that is trying to make a financial decision, because we're at the end of the day, it's about becoming wealthy, our show, that are trying to make financial decisions. How should they go about those?
I think as it relates to becoming wealthy as a couple, what I would say is that if one person is a hard charger or a high producer and the other isn't, or wants some more information, this is actually something that I learned at Lifebook from one of my clients, that they were having a private Lifebook retreat, and it was all financial advisors and their wives. And none of the wives worked. And one of the wives was like, I don't really feel like I get a vote in terms of purpose. And I'm just, you've got all these dreams and I'm just kind of along for the ride. So I don't really feel empowered to put my big dreams on the table. And one of the financial advisors, another one in the group, was like, actually, wealth exists in the gap between what comes in and what goes out. So if we're bringing the money in and you're helping to keep it in, the women are equal wealth contributors because they're helping to keep it in. Now, if, and they were talking about some of their other friends who had wives who were big spenders and were spending it as fast or faster than it was coming in. It didn't matter what they produced. It was all going out. And so that was a real empowerment shift for the wives that weren't working to be wealth contributors because they were helping to keep it in. And, I think that's the frame. If both people can look at that, of it's a two-part game, what's coming in, what's staying in. And if we're staying it and growing it, what does that look like? Just to really empower, because who we marry is such a crucial decision to our wealth. Because if it's the wrong person, we're looking at a divide by two scenario.
Yeah. And this is a conversation in the past that we've had with Sofia, where I'm like, Sofia, we're nowhere near thinking about marriage, but possibly dating. And I mean, she's 16 years old. She's beautiful. And and I'm like, maybe that, that will happen soon. And what advice would you give her in terms of, relationships, especially considering that she's a driven girl, and what she should be looking at, when considering dating a guy, either now or in college.
Yeah. My kids are in this.
I want to postpone it as much as possible.
I know. And actually, I have a 17 and 15-year-old, and they both have girlfriends, and it's the most fun stage. Like, I love seeing them be boyfriends. It's new. It's like so fun to see how they're interacting. And so, yes, we date how we marry. And so keeping your standards high now is always going to serve you. And as women, I think one thing I wish I would have understood earlier was how important the way that we talk to our men is.
Okay.
I think women generally tend to be a little bit more complex, faster. We can see holistic solutions a lot easier. And so just being the invitation and like really speaking into your partner, being encouraging, being affirming, as a strong, ambitious female, I don't worry about you getting taken advantage of, but like just really embracing that boundaries and standards are an invitation to longevity in a relationship. It sets the ground rules so that both people know what game we're playing. And so being really quick with the boundaries and the standards that you want in a relationship, communicating those as fast as possible out of the gate, because the longer a relationship goes on, the harder it becomes to introduce those. And so as soon as you encounter something that doesn't feel great in a relationship, your knower knows, really paying attention to the way that your body is responding of like, this doesn't quite feel right, or I don't like where this is going, and communicating that right out of the gate is the most important thing.
Wow, that is, I love this, what you said right now, which is, how you date is probably how you marry, and having those high expectations from the get-go, having that high standard for yourself, Sofia, is important. And I love how you worded it, because, and plus, I think it lands different when it's another woman, pouring into her that is not her mother, so sure. This is, yeah, I love how you worded that. Now, when it comes to wealth, what are you teaching your boys as far as wealth building goes, and what does that mean to you? Basically, when you talk about wealth to the boys, what are you relating to them?
That wealth is often what's unseen. So like, especially coming into this age right now and with social media, and it's like, well, they have these sneakers or this car and all of this stuff. And it's like, you don't know that that's not on a credit card somewhere. So it's not always what you can see. Wealth exists in what comes in and what goes out. So if they're spending all of their money on these things, they're not actually wealthy. They could be broke and fancy, but they're still broke. And so understanding that it's what we keep in and how you invest it. And so we have a huge, huge emphasis on entrepreneurship in our family. We talk a lot about taxes, and so right now they're looking at different jobs. They're in baseball right now, but my oldest worked at Dick's for a while, and then he's got some other opportunities with small business owners who are paying cash, a little bit fewer dollars per hour, but untaxed. And so at the end of the day, where are you going to be keeping more money?
Yeah.
And of course, what's going to accommodate your lifestyle? What's the freedom that you want, working the puzzle backwards. So really living their life by design. And when they get spendy, like, you ate $700 last month. Like, you literally ate it.
Yes.
$700 worth of Jimmy John's and Chipotle, and because they have open campus, so they can go to Starbucks, and they can go everywhere during their lunch break.
Yeah.
Well, now what?
We had a budgeting session with Sophia where we talked about that, and even the use of an app to try to track her spending and make sure that she would stay within what we had, and compare her actual versus her budget on a monthly basis, to try to drive that message home as well. But yeah, you're right, it can add up. $13 here, $7 there, and before you know it, $700 are gone. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
I have two teenage boys and they're on 10,000 calories a day. So, I mean, it's not uncommon for them to get 2 or 3 entrees when we go out. And I'm like, you can't do that when you're working minimum wage jobs.
Yeah. That's true. Now, I wanted to shift back into a little bit about the entrepreneurs and their spouses. What are the biggest, I would say, hiccups that you see, basically, or challenges that you see couples dealing with out there, and what are some of the things that you have up your sleeve, or recommendations that you have for those couples in addressing those challenges?
I would say if I had to sum it up into one, it's the cliche I always use is business gets the best of you, family gets the rest of you. And so what that translates to a spouse, because business takes such a Herculean amount of time and effort and energy. And so the spouse sees all of this energy going into the business. And it's like, if I could just get a fraction of that into the family, we'd be good. But I'm just getting your scraps all the time. Even when you're home, you're on your phone, or, all of our vacations schedule around your work trips and your conferences. Like, can we ever just have something that's just for the family? And so the way that I help coach entrepreneurs to still give the same amount of effort to the business. It's like growing the family doesn't have to cost the business anything. Growing the family actually becomes a multiplier to the business, because when the family is good, confidence soars, and money is a confidence game. When confidence is high, we can do anything. And so, I talk to them about your marriage actually is a multiplier. So I talk about it in 1%. 1% of effort back into the family can yield a 90% return on your investment. Here's why. 1% of your day, 14 minutes, 24 seconds. What would your marriage look like, or your family look like, if you spent 14 minutes a day just playing and having fun together? A family walk around the block, playing Frisbee, playing tag, shooting hoops for 14 minutes a day. That can be a game changer, because this, once you get in the habit of play, it changes the temperature at home for the rest of the day. The climate there is easier. Everyone's happier. The compliment to criticism ratio. This is another thing that we learned at Lifebook. If you can just make sure that you're always complimenting your spouse at least 1% more than you're criticizing, you're going to be in good shape, because a lot of times we fall away from really praising our spouse or speaking into our partner. And in the absence of praise, everything can feel like criticism. Suggestions feel like criticism. Questions feel like criticism, because we're not also affirming. So making a conscious effort to be praising at least 1% more than we're criticizing. Having a shared sense of purpose together is going to help the partner feel more connected. Providing more than just financially at home. There's emotional support, there's household management, there's parenting, there's extended family, and putting that same amount of provision into the family as you would just thinking, oh, well, I make all the money, you take care of everything else. That's a recipe for disaster.
Yeah.
Protecting the family, always pursuing, these 1% ways to flirt, whether it's like sticky notes on the bathroom mirrors, or flirty texts throughout the day, or, hey, I'm going to take your car and make sure the tires are safe and the tank is filled up. Like these little ways that you pursue your spouse, 1% effort can totally change the landscape of your marriage.
Yes. Yes. I was just going to say, so Jack is, 6 weeks in Spain, and the very first week he's gone, and somewhere middle of the week, our assistant comes into the house because, I had to, sign some stuff, and she leaves, and I don't think much. Then I come back and I'm like, what the heck? What did I do with my water bottle? I need to get going, to do my workout. And I see a little sticky note that is handwritten, basically, and it's Jack's handwriting, and he's in Spain. And I'm like, this must have been Megan, that was our assistant that was there. And he must have pre-planned these, before he left.
Great.
So that when he would come, when she would come once a week into the house to get, checks signed and mail and so on and so forth, that she would leave those. And
then
thought,
the next week, what did you find?
and then the next week, what did I find the next week? It
On
was
your pillow.
on my pillow, another little note on my pillow, and then the next week, which was this week, it was a card that he sent in the mail, and it was addressed to both Sophia and I.
Hey, I didn't see that one.
And you still need to see it. You really probably because you were not feeling this so good the last couple of days. And it was basically thanking us for the opportunity of him to get the space to go out there for 6 weeks and us staying at home holding the fort basically.
Yes.
And oh my gosh, it's not just that it's incredibly thoughtful, but yeah, it's I am now the intentionality and how we're going to meet him, I think, at the end of his journey, because we're going to Spain to meet him at the end of his pilgrimage, is going to be very different. Of course, we would have been crazy excited to see him, but that intentionality has added so much depth, to, I think, to that encounter now. I can't wait to see him. I can't wait to see.
You knocked it out of the park. Well done, sir.
And now I'm thinking, wow, how can I be more like that? He's taught me a lesson where he's led me, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I need to do a little bit more of this as well,
Yes.
So it's got to be both ways, not
Absolutely.
just from him, but from me as well. And I'm just very happy that Sofia gets to witness that, to see a 22-year-old marriage where this is happening, and
yes, amen.
Yeah.
Amen.
So thank you for mentioning that, because it is true. I mean, the dimension and the playfulness. I am ready actually to have a vacation afterwards when we meet him, that is going to be filled of leading edge experiences.
Finally, some new countries also.
Yeah, so we're going to be visiting some new countries, but after 22 years of marriage, sometimes these little things that we forget about because we're so busy with work are the ones that actually, like you said, have the huge return on involvement.
And I think that's why a lot of people don't put in the effort, because they feel like pursuit in a long-term marriage must look monumental. Like it must be like massive vacations or big jewelry or new home. Like like, what do you do? And it's not. It's the 1%ers. It's my partner. He'll leave my favorite coffee cup on the counter every morning if he leaves before me. Like, so when I come down there, it's already right next to the coffee. Like, it's the littlest thing, but it's the intentionality.
Yeah.
He thought he was thinking about me when I wasn't there. And those are the things that make the difference.
Yes. Kelly, I feel like I could talk to you, like, I think, forever. I mean, I just love you, and you have been, transformative to both Jack and I, when we went through the Lifebook program, and when we were kind of like addressing, okay, what is our vision and mission for the next, decade of what our character aspect of our life, our mental, our spiritual, our physical, our career, our social, our love relationship, our quality of life, like we got so much clarity, as a result of our work with you. And I would love other people, to get to know you, to work with you. And so if somebody would be, is interested in working together with you, or, following you, I know you're active on social. We're friends on social. Where can they go and learn more about what you do?
The best place is definitely my website, which is kellyclements.com. I am also on Instagram as the Entrepreneur, spelled with the word renew at the end. I have a very hit or miss relationship with Instagram. So when I'm hot, I'm hot. When I'm not, I'm not. So, but you can also find me there at The Entrepreneur.
And you have also published, I think, a couple of books as well, right?
Yes, 2 books. My last one was released just last year, and it's called Grow Your Business Without Growing Apart. And you can get that on Amazon.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so very much for being here with us today. I so appreciate you in terms of like helping clarify for Sofia a little bit about, the Kolbe, what she should be looking at in relationships, from the start, and just giving us some pointers and also some confirmation as to, okay, what really matters. And I like this, the 1%ers being the highest, contributors to the biggest ROIs, even though we don't think about them, and they really do make a difference.
So my pleasure. Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Thank you so much, Kelly. And guys, if you love today's interview and episode, make sure that you leave us a 5-star review, that you share this with another amazing woman in your life, or maybe it's a gentleman in your life that needs to hear this. We're looking forward to being with you on another episode of Becoming Wealthy. So stay tuned. Thank you so much for tuning in.